the thing with Rick Wake is he produced one of the biggest songs in the last album called Waiting for Tonight. And when he knew we were doing this, he wanted to get on the album, and he was really persistent about it. And he had sent in a few things, I guess, to Sony, and I had never heard them, because I guess, Tommy listens to stuff in Corey, and they kind of do an edit process, which, I totally trust them artistically. So they hadn't done anything. So Rick kept asking me, have you heard any of my stuff? And I was like, I think I heard something. I wasn't vibing it too much and this and that. And I'm like, Corey, did Rick send anything in? I want to hear his stuff. And he's like, yeah, but, we'll see about it. I don't know. So the thing with him is like, what I love about him so much is that even though he knew we weren't vibing some of the first stuff, he didn't give up there. He just kept coming back. He'd be hanging around the studio. He'd be like, I got something new for you. What about this? What about that? And we're like, until one day he walks in and he plays me. He's really excited about this dance track. And he plays it for me, and I'm like, okay. He says, I got 3 for you. Listen to all 3. The second one he plays is this kind of R&B with these big sounding timpanis and all this kind of stuff and tubas, and I was like, what is that? And then he was like, oh, that's Love Don't Cost a Thing. And I was like, I'm recording that. And he's like, okay. And he goes on, he plays me the third one, and da-da-da, and he kind of just played it off casual, like no big deal. And I said, no, Rick, I'm recording that tomorrow. Tomorrow we're doing that record. And he's like, oh, okay. Turns out he brings in the first smash single of the album. Rick, thank you very much. It was great, It's a real good story. It's funny, we had got to the point in the album, we had recorded maybe 10 or 12 records. And you always get to this point in the album where, like, for a few days, or could last weeks, could last months, where you just get to the point and you're like, okay, we need a smash. We need a smash to put this album to bed. You have, like, good stuff, you have great stuff, but it's not, you know when you get that record and you're like, all right, send it to the presses. We hadn't got there yet. And we were in the studio for like a few days, and it's kind of just like, what are we doing? Okay, well, let's do some fixes on this, and let's do some fixes on that, and this and that. And then Troy Oliver brings in a track, and Corey's like, I want you to listen to this. I come into the studio one morning, and we were going to do like some fixes on some background vocals of something, of some record. And Corey's like, listen to this. So he plays it for me, and I'm like, listening to it, and I'm like, oh my God, I love this. That's the chorus, right? This is the verse. And they're like, no. They had actually, the way Troy had written the track, what I put as the chorus was the verse, and he wanted the verse to be the chorus. And I go, I'll do it. I'll take this track. I'll buy this track right now, but this is going to be the chorus, and this is going to be the verse, and I want to take it right now, and I have an idea for it. Let me take it over to the other room and just sit down with it while you guys, set up. They were setting up. So I go into the other room and I kind of sit down, and I'm listening to this, and I start pontificating on things and the direction of the album and what it has to be and this and that. And then I just sit there and I go, okay. And then I just sat down, and it was actually a really, really important moment for me as a songwriter in my career, because it was the first time I wrote melody, where I actually wrote music, So I sat there and I started writing all this stuff, and Benny was actually, my manager, was sitting next to me, and I say, okay, I got it. Listen to this, right? And I sing it to him, and he kind of looks at me like, okay, are you going to leave the bad, bad bitch line in? And I'm like, that's part of the song. We could get somebody really cool to say it. It's going to be a guy, and it's going to be like this. It's going to be, I'm real, what you got to say, to me. You're telling all your friends she's a bad, bad bitch. He just looks at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, I'm going to go sing it for Corey because he's going to get it. So I go, he's, no, I like it. I said, whatever. So I go to the other room, and I'm really kind of nervous about it because, like I said, it's the first time I wrote a melody. So I didn't know if it was good, although it sounded good in my ear. You never know. You can't be objective sometimes. So I go to Corey and I say, and the room is full. When you're hanging out in a studio, he has his boys, and his boys have his boys, and it's always full of boys. And I go over to Corey and I go, I wrote something to it. He's like, already? It was like 15 minutes later from the time I went in there. And I said, yeah, but I only want to sing it for you, And he's like, okay. So I sing it in his ear, and he starts dialing a number, and he's like, this is my answering machine. Sing it right here before we forget it. So I guess he liked it. And we actually wound up recording it that night. So we did it all in a day. Play. This is funny because I can take no credit for this at all. And it's probably going to be one of the biggest records off of the album. One day, me and Corey in the studio again, as usual. And we get a phone call from Tommy Mottola. I'm in Sweden. I have a smash record. You have to do it right now. And we look at each other like, okay. I was like, he has a record. He wants us to listen. We put him on speakerphone. We listen to this track in a very rough form. And we both look at each other like, oh my God. He wants us to do this record. So it's like, what do you think? What do you like? We're like, yeah, well, I don't know. We'll see. I don't know if I'm feeling it. It's hard to hear over the phone, you know? And he's like, I'm telling you, this record is incredible. I'm like, okay. So we hang up the phone and Corey's like, major surgery, scalpel, please. You know? It's like, oh, damn, what are we going to do? But Tommy really believed in the record, and he was relentless. He would not give up. He's like, you know, calls like an hour later. So I'm flying the guys to Sweden on Monday. This was like Thursday. I'm flying them from Sweden on Monday. You guys will work Tuesday and Wednesday, and we'll get this record done. And I'm telling you, it's a smash. You guys, you know, change the words a little bit if you want. Do whatever you want to it. I don't care. But this track, I'm telling you. So we're like, okay, Tommy, okay. We hang up the phone. Sure enough, I go away for the weekend to do something. I come back Monday morning. They're the guys from Sweden, right there, on tour in Anders, and there they are in the studio playing with all their computers. And I'm like, hey, nice to meet you guys. So I pull Corey aside. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, you know what? Actually, I just fooled around with it a little bit, me and then and them, and you know, I think it's gonna be hot. And I'm like, yeah. I said, you're not just gassing me, being the Tommy soldier of it all. And he's like, no, I'm telling you, it's hot. So I listened to it, and I was like, you changed that. And he's like, yeah, it's gonna be hot. Again, went in, recorded it. It turned out to be, you know, a shoo-in for making it on the album, you know. So thanks, Tommy. You know, along with a couple of other writers, Jack Knight and I don't know, I forget the names. There was a few writers on that one, but I helped mostly with the chorus. I sat down with them and wrote it. I don't know. It's just like we said, we needed that one smash dance record. We needed a dance record, you know, to like complete the whole vision of what I wanted to do from the beginning. You know, it's like we have all this stuff, we're ready to go. We have 12 to 15 that we can put on the album right now. You know, the only thing that's missing is this dance club track that that I really want to complete the album. And Puff happened to be in the studio one day and heard me and Corey talking about that. We would never have thought to gone to him for that type of record, you know. So we were just kind of talking about it, and he goes, a dance record, yeah, you know, being that he's a hip hop and R&B producer, and he says, I'll do it. I'm gonna make you that record. And we're like, okay, you know. And he goes, no, I'm gonna make you a hot dance record. So he wound up submitting several records, but 5 records that we considered for the album, and one of them was Walking on Sunshine. And we had made a deal with him for a certain number of songs, so it was like, okay, which one are we gonna throw out? And we were gonna throw out Walking on Sunshine because he had bought this kind of electronica record in at the end that was really cool. And my manager, Benny Medina, the famous Benny Medina, says, you're not doing Sunshine for the record? And I'm like, I'm not sure that it's right for, I think these other records are stronger. I think they fit more the whole feeling of the album. He's like, oh, you're making a mistake. We let it go for a few weeks out in Europe. He's like, you got to do Walking on Sunshine no matter what. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. Every time I play it, like just the demo, I would play it. People would always react to it. So last thing we did was go in and record Walking on Sunshine. I think it was the last record we did. One of the last records along with Secretly that we went in, did. And once it was mixed, again, it's probably going to be a single contender. Ain't It Funny, which is kind of the flamenco-y kind of track on the album, was inspired by The Wedding Planner. The director, Adam Shankman, asked me, he really wanted me to do a song for the soundtrack. I want you to do a song, you should do a song, you should do a song. I'm like, all right, so I tell Corey, and this was when we first started making the album. I'm like, they want me to do this record for this. Do you want to do it? And he's like, yeah, you know what? I have this track that's perfect for you. I was making it for you anyway. Let's use that and write to that. So I was like, okay. We sat down, and with the whole idea of the movie being, how fate can change, like one moment in your life can just change it forever, and how fate always plays a part in love, and how you can't control those feelings no matter how hard you try. And I mean, we all, these are universal things that we all can understand that happen to us in our lives. And the song just kind of took on this really beautiful life of its own about transcendent love and soulmates and stuff like that. Really beautiful. But in the beginning, it was inspired by the movie, although they didn't wind up using it. But it turned out better for me because it's on the album. Cariño was really, really fun to make. It was probably one of the most fun records because we had all live musicians come in. We had all these musicians from Mark Anthony's salsa band come in, even though it's a cha-cha, to come in and do all the Latin stuff on the album, on the song, to do all the Latin stuff on the song. But it was funny because we had the track. One of the first tracks I picked for the album was Cariño. And we knew we were going to name the song Cariño, but we didn't know what we were going to write the song about. So, it had a very, like I said, it's a cha-cha, so it has a very sexy vibe to it. So we're like, it has to be sexy, it has to be hot. We should talk about this and this and that. And I'm jotting down all these ideas, and me and Corey are brainstorming. We could not come up with a melody for this song at all. Neither one of us, just blank. Almost towards the end of the album, I go away to promote the cell. And Corey's like, I'm sending you Cariño. I wrote it. It was a triumph. You know what I mean? We wrote it. We finally wrote it. Well, he wrote it. And he sent it, and I loved it. I was like, oh, it was so passionate. And I'm a sucker for the passion. You know what I mean? So I was just like, oh, my God, I love it. I love it. And I said, I just want to change the chorus. If that's okay. So I changed the chorus. And then we went from there. And to bring in the guys, like all these salsa singers to do the background vocals and the authentic musicians, it was just a really different experience for me. And I just had a ball with it. Come Over is one of the only ballads on the album. When I started to do this album, I didn't want any ballads. I just wanted it to be straight up-tempo, smash, hip record, dance stuff, that people could enjoy. You can put it on from beginning to end and just jam all the way through. But because those are the kind of albums I like, something that just carries me through. I could put it on while I'm cleaning on a Sunday and just let it play. And it gives me energy, or the type of record that you put on, before you go out to a club. It's like, let's just put it in and get dressed to it and take a shower to it. And by the time we get to track number 13, we'll be out the door, that type of thing. But Come Over is a ballad. And I only recorded 2 ballads for the album, and both of them made, because you overcut, we recorded about 25 different tracks. And we only did 2 ballads. And both of them made it on the album because they were both really special, and Come Over was one of them. When I first heard it, it was just had the kind of sexiness in a ballad that you don't hear all the time. With ballads, you get a lot into the emotion and the love and, all this kind of stuff, but it's rare when you get a ballad that makes you feel like a Prince record. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh yeah, it's on. You know what I mean? And this record did that to me. This record, when I first heard it, I was like, who wrote that? I want it. Actually, Puffy produced it, and he was playing it in his truck. And he said, I did the track, and I had this girl write it. Do you like it? And he's pretty smart about things like that. He kind of played it for me without playing it for me, in his truck, where I was just like, whose record is that? I want it. And he's like, okay, I was playing it for you anyway. I was planning on it anyway. So we wound up doing it, and it's just one of my favorite records on the album. We Gotta Talk was one of the first records I think the first record we recorded for the album. Um, I think it was originally a track for Michael Jackson or something that he never heard because they never submitted it or something because he had, I guess what he needed. But I just loved it. I just didn't know the day that I went into the studio if I could sing or not because I wasn't feeling well, and it was like so up tempo and so much energy, the song, and Corey's like, you know what, this song, seriously. And I thought he was just gassing me. He was like, it just needs that type of kind of scratchy, gruffy voice, and I really think you should just try it anyway. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, okay, Corey. And so I went in and sang on this cold, on this bad throat. And I sang it, maybe, I don't know if it was, Corey said, because I really wanted to get out of there quickly. We did it like within a couple of hours and it was done. And I didn't have to deal with it ever again. But it actually turned out really well. So. To me, what the song is talking about is basically in a relationship wanting, what you give to receive in return. It's like a 50-50. It always has to be a 50-50. And I like that idea. So I wanted to name it 50-50. But then again, you want people to be able to relate to it, or as soon as they hear it, go, oh, that's not me, So we went with That's Not Me. But I love that. If I would have had more time to live with the album, I think that would have been my choice to lead the album, because it has so much drama in it, musically. I mean, vocally, I feel like I pushed myself on it, and I just feel like, it's one of those kind of big kind of records like MacArthur's Park, like my little streety Boricua version of MacArthur's Park, you know what I mean? I just love it. So, but it's I think number 9 on the album. It turned out to be number 9, but it's in a good place because it kind of switches the tempo of things and brings it back into a kind of like moodier place. Dance with Me. It's like that. I call that the dirty kind of moody, just gritty track. You know what I mean? It's very like, it just drives in a certain way. I love it. Dance with Me again. Another one that was produced by Puff. The first one he brought to me, and I was just very impressed because it had such a different sound. It wasn't something normal. It's like had R&B, and he incorporated Latin, but not in an obvious way. And again, about that same kind of party lightheartedness, but it's a serious game. You know what I mean? Partying and dancing is real. It's a serious. People enjoy that, and it's not a joke. We need to hear our favorite songs when we go out. We need to have the right clothes. We want the people, we want the atmosphere. We want to have a good time. We got to let the pressures of life go, and that's really what the song is about. Secretly was another Corey Rooney, Troy Oliver track that, again, fooling around on the piano. Troy one day in the studio starts singing this, secretly, and I'm like, oh my God, that's so beautiful. And he's like, I haven't written the rest of it yet. And I was like, well, give me the track. And Corey's like, I want to do it like this, and we got to take the birds out, and it's like all this stuff. And once we all got together, they did the track, and then they gave it to me, and I took it home, and I just wrote I just felt like it needed to be so simple. I wanted to have like a simple kind of little ballad that breathes about just more about the feeling of how you, when you see someone, you know what I mean, that you really can't touch, but more how the thoughts in your head go, as opposed to like singing all these lyrics and explaining and all that, but more just like random thoughts, and so that's what we did. A lot of the songs on the album that I wrote that I had something to do with, of course, reflect something of somewhat of your belief system and that which inspires you as an artist. You know what I mean? So, you must be inspired by something, whether it's in your life or something you see other people go through or instances that you've been through. And, I'm Gonna Be Alright was a perfect example of that. You know what I mean? Where I just really wrote from the heart, you know. And that's not always the easiest thing to do, you know. It's easy, but it's not easy to record it and put it out there, you know. It's easy to write. You know, I write tons of songs that are, you know, raw. Like if people read them, they'd be like, "Oh, that's how she felt about her ex." You know what I mean? But you don't want to always put those out there. But this was a song that was really from the heart of things that I've seen, you know, friends of mine go through, family of mine go through, I've gone through, you know, just one of those really on the nose kind of songs that turns out maybe not to be the biggest smash hit on the album, but the one that means the most to you, as far as an artist, and fulfilling something and almost being a sort of therapy for you, you know? Rodney Jerkins gave me my first number one single ever, which was If You Had My Love off my first album. So, of course, he was a natural choice to work on this album. And he came with, again, you know, one of those crunch times where you're like, we need a first single. We like put the word out. We need a first single. We need a first single. And he came back with this great track called That's the Way. I mean, it didn't turn out to be the first single, but it turned out to be, you know, an incredible song, and I love it. It actually was a perfect way to end the English section of the album. So